Hey guys! In today's video, we're going to be doing a curl tracker project, which is basically like an exercise tracker, where if you hold a dumbbell and every time you do a curl, then it tracks that. So, let's get into it. So in this video, first of all, I'll introduce the module we're going to be using, which is what the AI tracker is going to be using, which is called MediaPipe. Then I'll introduce pose detection, which is the algorithm we're going to use for this video. Then I'll introduce what the project is, and then we'll get straight into the interactive demo, in which first we'll do some installations, then we'll do the setup, and then we'll do the actual curl tracker project. So let's get into the introduction. Alright, so first of all, what is MediaPipe? Well, MediaPipe is a software library that was created by Google specifically for a bunch of different languages, but it's mostly made for machine learning so that you can do a bunch of different projects. And they have a very wide range of projects that you can do, from face detection to object detection to pose detection. And like I said, it's completely open source and free, and it uses some TensorFlow algorithms just like Google intended for it to be created like. And like I said, there is a documentation. So all you have to search up is Google MediaPipe, and then it should be here. Yeah, right here. So this is the documentation, and as you can see, it has extensive tutorials on everything. So it covers a bunch of different languages. For example, Android, iOS, Python, JavaScript, C++, a bunch of stuff. And then these are all of the ML solutions that it provides. So here we have face detection, face mesh, which I've created a video on, iris detection, hands, pose, which we're going to be doing in a different video. I've also done a video on hand tracking, holistic, hair segmentation, object detection, box tracking, and a bunch more. So in this video, for this project, since it needs to detect your arm and your body, we're going to be using pose detection. So that's that. And it also, like I said, it supports a bunch of different languages, and then these are all the different projects with the languages. So that's the documentation, and I'll put a link for that documentation down in the description below if you'd like to check that out. So that's what MediaPipe is, and it's the main module we're going to be using in order to have the algorithm for our project. Next up is pose estimation. Like I said, MediaPipe provides some code and some documentation for a bunch of different projects, one of them being pose estimation. Now for this video, we're going to take it one step further and we're going to make a project out of that. But what is pose estimation? Well, it's a computer vision algorithm that it detects all of the human figures in either a static image or, in our case, a live webcam, and then it gets all of the different key body joints, and you can see all those points, which are called key points, all over this guy's body, and it's like showing. So it takes all of those key points and then it finds the spatial locations between them and then draws a line. So that's how you can see the main figure of this guy. And there's 32 different key points. So it'll get all 32, point them out, and then put lines between them so that you can see the human body. So we're going to be using that pose estimation for our project. So let's check out what the project actually is. So this is the curl detection project. For each frame of our video, we're going to have a live webcam, and then for each frame of it, we're going to put pose detection, and then it'll check the degree between your forearm and your elbow, so that if you do one curl, then the degree of the angle between your arm and your elbow would be very little. So if you do a curl, then it'll show that on the output. Like it can show one curl done, two curls done, like that. So now that you know what MediaPipe is and how to use it, let's use it to create a curl detection project in Python. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Atom so that we can actually make the code. So we have our curl project.py, and then this is what I'm going to be using to code it. So first of all, what we have is the imports. So we're using MediaPipe obviously, and we're also going to be using OpenCV so that we can first of all get the webcam input and actually draw on the webcam input, and then obviously show it back to us. So we have CV2, which is OpenCV, and then we're going to import MediaPipe as MP because we don't want to continuously write it out every single time. And then since we're doing some math operations for calculating the angle for your arm so that to see if you actually did a curl or not, To calculate it, we're going to need some math operations, so we're also going to import numpy as np, because again, we don't want to say it again and again. Next up is the actual setup. So to do setup for most MediaPipe programs, we're going to make these two variables. So first of all, we have mp drawing, which is for MediaPipe drawing. And then since we want to draw on the camera input, that's what we're going to be using. So mp, which is MediaPipe.solutions.drawingutils, and then this will just get all of the drawing stuff we need for MediaPipe. Next up, we have mp pose. Since we're using pose detection for this program, we're going to need to initialize it with mp solutions.pose, because this will get all of the pose detection stuff. And then finally, we're going to get the video capture. So like I said before, we're using OpenCV to get our video capture. So cv2.video capture. And then since I'm using my webcam from my computer, it's 0. But this is just to give you like an index of what webcam you're using. So if you have an external webcam, then you would say 1. And then if you have multiple webcams connected to your computer, you would either say 2, 3, or 1. But since I have an embedded one, I'm going to use 0. So that's all for the setup. And actually, since we're going to do curl counter, we'll just initialize these variables right now. So we have our curl counter, but we're going to show it back onto the output. So let's just initialize that variable as 0 now. So we're going to make a variable called counter, and then as we see that the person in the webcam, as we see that they do a curl, then we'll change this. But for now, we're just going to keep counter as 0, and then stage is equal to none. This is another variable that we're going to be using. Next up, we're going to want to actually calculate the angle. So to explain this in depth more, in order for a person to do a curl, you have to have your arm out and then you have to pull it up back. So what we're going to do to measure if a person actually did it is we're going to get the angle first, which should be around 180, or at least more than a certain angle. And then if they pull it all the way up, then the angle would be very less. So then we need to calculate that angle and then see if they did a curl like that. So first thing we're going to do to get the angle is we need all those mathematical operations. So we're going to keep this into a function so that we can just return the angle itself and then use that. So to get the angle between the forearm and the arm, then we're going to make a function. So let's call this like calculate angle. Maybe we can have like a dash there. Okay, so and then for calculate angle, we're going to need 3 parameters, A, B, and C, and then we'll just initialize these later. So we're just going to have this here, and then we're going to initialize A, B, and C here. So for A, we're going to use numpy because we initialized that here as np. So numpy.array, and then we're going to create an array, and then we'll put that as A. Then same thing for B and C. NumPy array is B and then C. So this is going to be for the first one, the middle one, and the end one. So next thing we're going to do, I'm just going to copy this code, but basically what it does is it takes the 3 points, A, B, and C. So the 3 points are the shoulder, elbow, and wrist, which is what we're going to be measuring for the angle. That's like point A, point B, and point C in an angle. And then we're going to just get the degree of those. So then after that, we're going to need to do something with that. So now that we have the angle, we need to measure if the person, it's changed or not. So let's just make one last thing inside of this function. So if angle, which is our variable, this is the variable to actually get the angle. So if angle is less than, or if it's greater than 180, then that means that it would be backwards, which is not possible. So, okay, let's say 180.0. Okay, if the angle is greater than 180, then we're going to change the angle to be 360 minus angle, because let's say you have it bent like this, then the MediaPipe might see it as more than 180. So then we want to make it a little smaller, just in case you're doing it backwards. And then we're just going to return angle. Okay, so now what we've done is we've created this function where it takes 3 parameters, A, B, and C, which later will initialize those as your shoulder, the position of your shoulder, your elbow, and your wrist. And then we've put those into arrays. Then we found the angle between, the degree angle between all 3 of those. And then we've just gotten some other scenarios, and then we're going to return that. So that's all for calculating the angles. Next up, we need to set up the MediaPipe instance, and then we can actually do something with this angle. So that's in the next part, MediaPipe. So to set up the MediaPipe instance, I'm going to use a with loop. So with MP pose, which is what we've initialized up here, MP pose, and that's basically just the pose estimation program. So with MP pose.pose, here pose is a function that has all of the pose estimation stuff, and then we need to provide a couple of parameters. I'll just do it here actually. Okay, so minimum detection confidence. And if you've seen my other video on pose estimation, then this will become a lot easier. I'll put that in the description. So we have minimum detection confidence and we have minimum tracking confidence. Okay, and then that'll also be equal to 0.5. And then that will be that. And then we're just going to have that as pose because we don't want to keep on writing this whole thing out. So we're going to initialize that as a variable. And then inside of all of this, then we can get our video input. And then inside of the video input, we'll do all of the other project stuff. So now we have the pose detection. So inside of the pose detection, we need to have something to display. In this case, this would be the live video input. So I'm going to say while cap, which is our CV2 video capture. So while cap.isOpened. So whenever the video capture is opened, then we need to read each frame of the video capture and then do everything to it. So if you've seen my other videos, then you would know we have ret and frame. These are 2 variables that are just cap.read. And then this will just read each frame of the video capture. Then now for each frame, we can do all this stuff. Okay. So now the next thing we need to do is, we need to recolor our image to RGB format, because right now it's in BGR format, but in order to use MediaPipe on it, we need RGB format. So how we can do that is we're going to make a variable called image, and then we're going to say cv2.cvtcolor. And then this is just a function that will change the color format. So we're going to change it on frame, and then cv2.color_BGR to RGB. And what this is saying is, BGR to RGB. And what this is saying is, right now it's in BGR color format, but we want to change it to RGB so that we can work with it in MediaPipe and make the detection. Then we're going to say image.flags.writable equals false, because right now we don't want to write on the image because we're just doing the pose estimation. Then we're going to quickly make a results variable. So this results variable will just be the processed image with all of the pose detection. So like I said, in pose detection, we have all the key points, and then it's going to draw the lines between the key points. So that's that. We just want to process an image with that. So we're going to, in this results variable, we're going to use our pose estimation, which is what we've initialized here. This is the pose estimation variable, and then we're going to process it with our frame. So after we have that results variable, now since we're going to work with it in CV2 or OpenCV again, then OpenCV works with BGR color format, but MediaPipe works with RGB. So since we've converted it to RGB format, now we need to put it back into BGR. So instead of color BGR to RGB, now we're going to say color RGB to BGR. Okay, and then in this case, now we're going to make it true again. Then we can put that right above here, actually. Oh, I wrote glags, not flags. Okay, here. All right, boom. So there we go. Now we've set up our MediaPipe instance, and now we've processed with our pose detection our frame. So now that we've done that, then we can do the actual curl counter stuff. So to do that, to do the curl counter project, right now we have our results in our image. So if we were doing just regular pose estimation, then we would just display the results onto the page. But this is more than that. This is an actual project for curl counter. So we're going to extract all of the landmarks, which in this case, if you remember when we created this angles function, we needed A, B, and C, which was the shoulder, elbow, and wrist. So to do that, we need to get the shoulder, elbow, and wrist. So we're going to do this in our curl counter right here. So we're going to use a try. Okay, so try, and then we'll make a variable called landmarks so that we can actually get all the landmarks. So results, which is our results, obviously, and then pose landmarks dot landmark. Okay, and basically what this landmarks variable does is we have all of our key points, right? So we need those key points because right now we're trying to get the coordinates of our shoulder key point, elbow key point, and wrist key point so that we can use them. But we need to get all of the key points first, so that's what's in the landmarks variable. Then we can individually get the shoulder, elbow, and wrist. So first I'm going to make a variable called shoulder, and then that will be equal to landmarks with an index of MP, because in the landmarks variable there's a bunch of key points. So we need to index it by MP pose dot pose landmark dot, and then we need to get whatever value we want. In this case, we want just the left shoulder. Okay, so we have the left shoulder dot value because we need to get the value of that. And then since we need the coordinate, we need to get the x value of this and the y value. So we're going to say this dot x, and then we need to, again, landmarks. Let me just copy this actually. Okay, so this whole thing. And then we same thing but for y value now. Y. All right, there we go. So pose mark, left shoulder, we have the x value and the y value now. Okay, so that's great. Next up, we need to do the same thing, except instead of the left shoulder, we need to get the left elbow and the left wrist. All right, so let me just do this. Okay, so we have this and this, okay. And then let me indent these. Okay. So now instead of the shoulder, now we need the left elbow and then the wrist. And then instead of left shoulder, I'll say left elbow, left elbow, and then instead of left shoulder, left wrist. And you can't just put random things based on what you need. You have to, there's a certain name for each key point. In this case, the left shoulder is called like this. So you can guess most of the key points' names, but it's like that. Oh, what happened? Okay, so now that we have the coordinates of the shoulder, elbow, and wrist, now we can put the shoulder, elbow, and wrist as our A, B, and C for the calculate angle. And that's what we're going to do. So let me just do this. Okay, so to calculate the angle, now I'm going to change the angle variable. So we have our angle variable, and then I'm going to put the calculate angle, that function that we've created. And then now, as the A, B, and C, we're going to put shoulder, elbow, and wrist, which is the functions we have. Shoulder, elbow, and wrist. Yes, that's perfect. So now we've calculated the angle, and now we have the certain degree of if the person did a curl or not. So now we can use that to actually visualize the angle. So now what we're going to do is, after that, we're going to do the curl counter logic, which is basically saying if the angle is greater than, let's say 160, then that means that the stage of the curl is down. And then if the angle is maybe less than 30, then that means that the stage is up and the person is up, like this. So how we're going to do that? we're going to use a bunch of if commands. So let's say if the angle, this is the angle of right here. So now we're going to say if the angle is greater than 160, that's around this much. So if the angle is greater than 160, then we're going to make the stage, we have the stage variable as none right now, but we're going to make the stage to equal to down. Then we're going to say if the angle is less than 30 now, that would mean that the angle is pretty small. So if the angle is less than 30 and the stage is already down, because we can't have it whereas if you just start up the program and it's already 30, then you would say it's up. So no, we're going to say and if the stage is equal to down, then we're going to make it up because right now the stage is down and the person moved it up. Then we're going to say stage is equal to up. And then we're going to say counter plus 1 because at that time it already went down to up, which means that the person did a curl. So counter is plus 1, and then we're going to just print the counter right now, just so that we can see, you know. All right, and then since this is all in a try loop, we're going to have accept and pass. So right around here, let's write accept, pass. All right, there we go. And then what we can do after that, we want to render the curl counter and render like in the top left corner, we're going to have the amount of curls that the person did. But right now, actually, you know what we can do? We can just show the person, instead of rendering it, we can just print the counter right now. So first thing I'm going to do is render the detections though. So we have our pose here. So I'm just going to show that here first of all, before we render the curl counter. So I've copied and pasted this code, but basically what it does is it has our draw landmarks, and this will just draw all of the key points and the lines between the key points. So that's what that does. Then after that, we want to actually show it to the user. So this is all, like now it's in a variable, but we want to show this to the user. So how we can do that is we have to say cv2.imshow, and we're using the imshow function so that we can show it back to us. And then let's just say MediaPipe image curl project. And then we want to show image, which is each frame. And then we're going to say if cv2 wait key, this is just standard code for this. If cv2 wait key is 10, and then all that. And then after that, we want to release the webcam back to the user and then destroy all the windows so that the user can actually see. So let's save this, and yeah, now we have a successful curl counter project. And now what it should do is it should see if we did a curl, then it should print how many curls we did on the screen, on the terminal screen. So let's test it out. All right, so I'm going to go to terminal, and the first thing I have to do is pip install, or in this case, pip3 install. First of all, MediaPipe if you haven't already, and also OpenCV. So as you can see, mine is already done. So to install OpenCV, you would have to say OpenCV Python, and then install it like that. And most likely you'll need to use a virtual environment like I'm using, just to keep everything in place. So let's run it. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is say python3 and then whatever our file name is. In my case, it's called curlproject.py. So we're going to run that, and yep, here we go. This is just a sign that it's running because we're using TensorFlow also. And then yeah, as you can see, it's opened up here. And okay, it's a little blue here, but as you can see, we have all of the pose detection thing, and you can even see my hands, and it's working. So the first thing it's doing is, okay, if I move back here, then it should see my hands correctly. Then if I do this up and down, then as you can see on the terminal screen, it's printing more and more curls. So if I do more, then it's printing it correctly. So as I do one curl, then it moves up. And then if I do nothing else, then it doesn't work. But if I do a curl, then it works. And it even works if I use like weights or something, then if I do a curl, then it goes up on the terminal screen. So there we go. That worked. So as you can see, it is working, and it has pose detection working with it. So there we go. That's a curl estimation program with Python. So right now we're just making it print on the terminal screen, but I think we can take it one step further. I think what we can do is, in the output, we can make a little box in the corner of the screen, and then we can show the amount of curls there. So right about here, when we're saying show, I'm going to draw a little box with OpenCV, because OpenCV lets you draw rectangles and put text and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to use that like this. So as you can see, I've pasted this code to create a rectangle, and then this is the color of the rectangle, and we have all of that. So next thing I'm going to do is actually add all of the data. So first of all, we would want to show how many curls I did and if it's up or down. So that's the stage. So the first thing I'm going to do is curls data. This is just the amount of curls I did. So then that's that, and then we have some fonts and stuff like that. Then the next thing we need to do is the stage data, which is if it's up or down. So we're going to have it like that, and then next thing is stage. Oh, what happened? Okay, and then stage. And then here we have the stage here. So right now you can see the string of the counter, that's how many curls you did, and then this is the stage. So there we go. Now it should have created a rectangle, and then after it creates the rectangle, then it'll have all the curl data and the stage data. So let's test that out too. So once again, I'm going to go to terminal here, and then we're going to use our Python 3, and then curl tracker.py. And then here we go. So again, it has that blue hue, but here we go. So we have this 0 down, and then first of all, we have our curls and the stage. So the amount of curls as of now is 0, and then the stage is down because I'm not doing anything right now. But if I do some curls, then it should change right here. So let's just move this over here, and then we'll try it out. Okay, so as you can see, the pose estimation is still working, but it is glitching a little bit because my arms are moving. But if I take the weights, and then you can see if I do 1, then it's saying 7 up, 7 down, and then 8 up, 8 down. And then like that, if I continue like this, then it keeps on doing that. So there we go. And then even if I don't use weights, and if I just continue like this, then it should work also like that. And then as you can see, there's not much space, so it continues doing that like that. But here we go. So it has worked, and it is continuing to count the curls, and then it's showing that on the screen. So then if I stop the program, Control-C, then it stops the program. But yeah, that's basically a very simple curl tracker project in Python. So to overview the whole thing, what we've done is we've imported all our modules, we've set up MediaPipe, then we created our own function to calculate the angle between first of all, your wrist, your elbow, and your shoulder, just to get the angle of if you did a curl or not. Then we set up MediaPipe, and then we did the actual curl counter, getting the shoulder, elbow, and wrist, and then putting that into our function. Then we just showed everything on the screen and printed it out on terminal. So there we go. That's a curl counter project in Python. Alright, so that was the curls project in Python. It's been a long time since I've done a Python project, and there are more projects to be coming out on this channel, so stay tuned for those. Thanks very much for watching. If y'all had any doubts, please comment down below. I would love to help you out if you're stuck with any curls project questions or issues. Please like, subscribe, all that jazz. Until then, you can learn anything.